My girlfriend suspected that her husband was having an affair and she hired a private investigator. He really didn't come up with anything. So I literally, this is all at one dinner I found this out, what a private detective couldn't do in 6 months. Hey guys, it's Chrissy Marsh. I have so much to unpack today and it's really scandalous. It's a really tough topic actually because people are so opinionated when it comes to this topic. And whenever I brought it up at dinner parties or whenever I brought it up with a bunch of girlfriends or even in a mixed group, it really fires people up. So I'm hoping to fire you up today. And I would love you to tell me your comments about the whole subject. I know you're dying to unpack cheating with me, but it's not about who's cheated, they've cheated, he's cheated. What I want to talk about is if you had a girlfriend or a really good friend or a boyfriend or anyone, and you knew that they were cheating on their partner, would you actually tell that partner? So I literally, I don't know where, but I've got really strong opinions on this. And I basically decided from a really young age, I would never, ever tell the partner they were cheating. Because I think in that situation, I think a lot of the time, if someone's cheating on you, you really do know, really deep down. I think, look, obviously some people are really clever at lying and really clever at, getting away with things. But I think a lot of the time, and I don't want to say 90%, but I do think a lot of the time that partner already does know. That partner has an inkling and they could explore it if they wanted to. They could confront their partner if they wanted to. They could at least have their guard up. But a lot of the time, I don't think people really want to find out or really want to know whether their partner's cheating on them. And I think it's really interesting that you think, oh, no, I must. I mean, it's so wrong. It's so bad. I must tell my girlfriend that, her husband's cheating on her. I must tell them. I must make them aware of it. The problem is I've seen it happen a gazillion times, not with me because I've never confronted anyone because I know why not to. And this is my reasoning behind it, is you go and tell that girlfriend, oh, look, by the way, just so you know, I've heard, I haven't actually caught him in bed with someone, but I've actually heard, or I know that he's having an affair. And you basically tear that person's world apart. You open up a hole that is really, really hard to repair. That person can't turn around and, even be dignified if she wants to, forgive and forget and try and repair their relationship. By you going and telling them that pretty much opens her up to giving her one choice, and that's pretty much to leave him or leave her. Whereas I think that if that person may already have an inkling and want to live their life like that as a lie and not really confront it or not really deal with it, by you going ahead and telling them that and really putting it right in front of their face is not going to make it any easier for them to sort of move through it. And the problem is, more often than not, when they get home, the husband or the wife starts changing their mind, starts saying, look, it was a 1 second thing, it was a drunken night out, I'll never do it again, blah, blah, blah. Now that person has totally cut off their relationship with you and you end up losing a really, really good friend because you obviously know the secret. You've obviously uncovered it. You've pushed them into this uncomfortable point in their lives. So then it basically backfires on you. And I think I've seen that happen so many times with so many friends, and I've always been the one to choose to remain silent because I think it's really interesting. You never quite know what goes on in someone's relationship. I mean, one time I thought a partner was being unfaithful on another, only to find out that both of them were swingers and both of them had other partners and both of them were quite happy with the other one having a partner. So I don't really think anyone knows what goes on behind closed doors, and what's acceptable in one relationship isn't acceptable in another relationship. And I know for myself, I would not come back from someone cheating. I would not come back from someone being unfaithful to me. You know how people say, oh, look, you forgive and forget, it's one drunken night, or, something happened, I was tempted. I think for me, the whole fundamentals of my relationship, and has always been, not just my relationship with Johnny, but my relationship with anyone, for me, that honesty and trust, without that, you've got nothing. I had an interesting, and it's not just about, trust in relationships in relation to other people. It's also, I went out with a guy who did a lot of coke. I didn't know it at the time. I ended up finding out, and it was a sort of a no-brainer for me. It was a non-negotiable. So for him to continually go and do that behind my back was like he was going and having an affair. It was like he was going and being dishonest. So when I walked in, and I never forget it, it was a party in Darlinghurst, and I basically walked in, and there he was with his, head down doing a line of coke. That for me was the lying, the cheating. So saying with relationships, so all of my friends knew that I was anti, drugs. All of my friends knew that I wouldn't put up with him doing it. And the whole reason I took him back was because he wasn't going to do drugs anymore. Then all of a sudden he's gone and done it again. So my friends knew that. They chose not to tell me that. And I would never expect them to tell me that. And that's what is a lot when, it's the same sort of trust and mistrust with affairs. You don't know what people accept within a relationship. And I would never jeopardize my friendship or my relationship with someone just to point out what might be clearly obvious in their lives anyway. I'd love to know what you all think about the whole cheating dilemma, because it is basically, to me, about faith, trust, and even with girlfriends. If I have a girlfriend that you lose trust with, or that lies to you, or it's really, really hard to come back from that. And I think everyone goes, do you forgive and forget? And I think you're a great person if you can wake up the next morning and you can continue on, because a lot of the time, if you've got 3 beautiful children, like, why should you just wake up and give that husband that you've had an incredible relationship with, an amazing marriage, and he's a great father, he's had one slip up, why should you send him into the arms of the the girlfriend or the mistress? Sometimes it's great if you can wake up and rebuild that relationship and rebuild what you've got in the marriage and sort of move on. And I think being able to forgive and forget is such a great trait. Unfortunately, I'm a Scorpio, and I can open a new book and I can get on with things, but I can never, ever forget. So for me, you want to be my friend, you've got to have the trust. You've got to be the one to, but I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to hear your stories. I mean, this could be this whole cheating, and what's funny? Like, I am the greatest detective ever. And I'll give you an example of this. So my girlfriend suspected that her husband was having an affair, and she's got 3 children, and she hired a private investigator, and she had the private investigator on the books for 6 months, and he really didn't, come up with anything. But in her heart of hearts, she knew that her husband was having an affair. I don't know, she just a gut feel. So anyway, we're up there having dinner one night, and I said to her, well, when did he start acting strange? What's gone on? She said, oh, it was this time. It was at a property event, and it was up in Brisbane at this bar. Anyway, I went and looked at the social pages from that particular event, just Googled it, and I noticed that there was this girl in the photograph. And I said to her, so where is he now? Anyway, he'd gone to Canada. And she goes, he's gone to Canada to see the bears. I mean, who packs up overnight, a father of 4 kids, and decides to go to Canada to see the bears? I'm like, he's gone to see the beaver, not the bears. I'm like, I wouldn't mind betting this girl's Canadian or something. So cut a long story short, I ended up calling Fridays, which is the name of a place up there where this girl had worked, who was in the photo of the social pages the same night that her husband was there. Great detective work I am. So I end up calling up Fridays and I'm like, hi, is Abby there? No, sorry, Abby's gone back to Canada. Ting. Okay, so clearly I know. And Abby had quite an unusual surname. So I literally, this is all at one dinner I found this out, what a private detective couldn't do in 6 months. Then I've gone online. I've checked out this Abigail's surname from the paper. There was 3. I knew this husband happened to be in Montreal at the time. There were only 2 people with that surname in Montreal. First person that the call didn't answer. Second one, this very elderly man answered. I'm like, hi, I'm just wondering if I forgot the name that I made up for her. Was it Ashley? Was it? I forgot. Anyway, whatever. It's a made-up name that I'm giving. I'm hiding people's identity here. Yes, Abby. I'm hiding people's identity. So I called up and said, like, hi, is Abby there? And they went, oh, no, actually, he's traveling at the moment with her boyfriend. I went, oh, really? An Australian? And the father goes, oh, yes, a lovely Australian. I said, well, he's not that lovely. He's actually got 4 kids at home waiting for him. So I found out within that time. So I think if you really want to find out about someone, the other way that we found out as well, there were 2 transactions in his bank accounts because I said to her, the first thing you've got to do, go through bank accounts. She went through the bank accounts and it was that surname, that unusual surname. He'd only transferred $25. I don't even know what the $25 was for, but that's what made him come undone, was that unusual surname that then tied back to the social pages, then that tied back to Canada. So the moral of the story is, if you really do think someone's cheating, I think there is always a way to get to the bottom of things. But yeah, an interesting case. I don't know why I told that little story, but it gives you a bit of an insight that you can always investigate someone. You can always get to the bottom of something. I know I gave the example about, the boyfriend cheating with the drugs. Cheating can be in so many different, it's not just about someone going and having sex with someone or someone going and kissing. I think there can be like emotional cheating where you've got 2 partners and one partner, really connects with someone at the office and has this like incredible emotional connection, and they flirt with them. They don't actually physically go home and have sex with them. But, I'd see that as a really big betrayal, or I'd see that as a really, like, sometimes that's even worse. I've heard of couples before where a guy's in a relationship and he's, telling his innermost secrets and how he feels about, his girlfriend to another girl. So he's really emotionally invested in this other girl because he's telling the innermost secrets about his actual girlfriend. Like, I consider that cheating. So there's lots of different layers and lots of different elements. And people say, oh, we've just got this incredible emotional connection. Well, I think emotional connection sometimes can be worse than someone physically going out and getting drunk one night and having an affair. I mean, some people are forming relationships outside of the marriage or outside of their regular relationship with people on an emotional level, and sometimes that can be a lot worse. 43% of Australians believe that flirting in the office and that emotional connection with a partner in the office is actually not great. It is a form of infidelity. So I think you've really got to think to yourself, if you're needing that connection and you're thinking, oh, well, the problem is my husband, is always complaining and always whinging, whereas, this guy accepts me and understands me. And I think you've really got to go home and chat about your relationship and work out, what, have you been neglecting? Have you been not paying enough attention to what's going on within your own relationship? It's so easy, to look at someone and, everyone, my mum always has that saying about, the grass is always greener on the other side, is because, and that's what they say about holiday romances. It's that same sort of thing. That person in the office can be that, you're only seeing them in that light, but wait till they get home and they've got this complaint or, there's this problem. It's like that holiday romance where everything on a holiday is fabulous. It's fantastic. And then you get them back into your real life and go, oh God, well, he doesn't really fit in with my parents. He doesn't really, get along well with any of my friends. So all of a sudden that holiday romance that was so magnetic and so wonderful and so intoxicating, as soon as you bring them back into reality and it's your normal life, It's not always greener. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think you've really got to go back and look at your relationship. If you're feeling that tendency of wanting someone else's attention and wanting to be liked by someone else or wanting to be noticed, I mean, maybe that's because you're not spending enough time in your own relationship. And, maybe you need to go back and say to your partner, hey, all of a sudden I'm, finding these advances at work really appealing and all that sort of thing, because at the end of the day, you're not, showing me the attention that we once did. That honeymoon period's really, gone stale. And I think that's why it's important to always revisit that episode of mine on vodka lectures, which is don't let the honeymoon period ever be over. But yeah, look, cheating is something that gets people so angry. I know for me personally what, I would only ever find acceptable. I think that, Deborah Furness recently came out with, Hugh Jackman with her divorce and, saying in the relationship, to be the one that's been cheated on, that hurt she felt, that, that pain she felt. Whereas really, maybe the relationship had well and truly ended before that other person came along, but it was just that catalyst to then go and make it happen. Maybe the relationship had already died, but they were staying together for the children, or they're staying together, for the wrong reasons. So I think, with anything, it's always to be, worth being honest. If you feel like your partner's pulled away, if you feel like things aren't great or there's secrets in the relationship, that's when you first feel it, by hiding something under a blanket, it's still always going to be there. So you've really got to address the issues. And I think that's the most important thing with any relationship. And for a relationship to be able to grow or even recover after something like that, or to work out that you need to move on, is about being honest. And it's not just about the person being cheating, it's being honest with yourself, saying, well, I think they're cheating on me, so what am I going to do? So it's really, it is an honesty thing at the end of the day, but you've got to be honest within yourself as well. And also, maybe you're someone that can put up with it for the rest of their lives. They know their partners have mistresses, but they're willing, in order to keep that partner, to put up with that. So it's up to you to understand. And I'm not here to say, that's wrong or that's right. All I'm saying is, for me, what I feel is right. And I know for me, I would not tell one of my friends if I knew their partner was having an affair. So I'd love to know your thoughts on the situation, because I know how passionate everyone feels about this. If you know anyone having an affair, forward this to them. No, just joking. I only want your comments.
One more question for you. Liking and following other women on Instagram, harmless or is that?
Oh yeah. Okay. For me, people say like liking and following other people on Instagram, like other guys or other girls. Like, really, if you're worried about that, you mustn't have a lot of strength in your relationship. Like, for me, I wouldn't care if Johnny followed every hot bikini model, because I'm feel confident and strong enough in my relationship. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Or if he saw me following 10 guys or whatever, like, what, I'm only allowed females on my feed? I mean, come on, there's got to be a level of trust and a level of, a baseline in a relationship. And if you don't have that baseline, if you're that paranoid about all those little things, oh my God, he's just gone and followed 2 girls. Look, I mean, if they're sliding into his DMs and he's having long conversations, well, that's a totally different issue. But photos and likes, I mean, really, come on. Everyone's got friends of the same sex, different sex. So I think you've got to be confident within your relationship, and there's so much paranoia that you can become. But often someone's paranoid for a reason. It's because they can see the signs, but they just don't really want to admit it. So look, if you want to be a detective like me, just call me. I'll be your detective for you. But if you do feel like you might be in a relationship, the best thing is to confront that person. They might be dying to tell you, and you think, oh, well, if I never confronted them, they never would have told me and my marriage wouldn't have broken up. Well, you're not really in a real marriage anyway, and you're probably torturing yourself by the second guessing the whole time anyway. So I think it's really important that you open your eyes. Your gut feel is normally right. Like they say, where there's smoke, there's flames. So you want to keep your head under the covers, want to be the ostrich with your head in the sand, continue to do it. It's your life, not mine. but it'll end up leading to some other sort of sickness, because you're holding all this inside. And I think that's the problem with people that, say, oh, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. They try and convince themselves they're fine with it, but then it comes out in some other physical, way within their lives. But, this is a cozy, rainy day to be talking about infidelity. It's such a hot, hot topic. I could talk about it all day. Anyway, have you cheated? Are you a cheater? Would you cheat? All these questions. What a great dinner party starter. Just put the podcast on, get it kicked off and see where it lands. There's a hot debate amongst women and men. So someone's married, say the wife goes and has an affair with some hot, spunky tennis coach. It then becomes the tennis coach's problem in the husband's eyes. Not the fact that the wife's cheated. It's all of a sudden, but the tennis coach is single. It's the woman that's married. And this is the funniest thing that you see happen. I mean, I've seen it a million times where the person that is actually, like, for example, the husband goes and sleeps with the secretary. The secretary turns around and goes, oh, well, of course she knew he was married. It's not my fault because I'm not married. And then they end up blaming the secretary. Well, no, it takes two to tango. It's not the fact, look, yes, the temptation was there. But if it wasn't that secretary, it could have been, the florist down the street. It'll be the next person. If someone's going to be a cheater, if someone's going to cheat, if you think that is the only time, and it's such a classic scenario because, you meet the second marriage, right? And she's basically had an affair with the husband, or had an affair, ends up going off with the husband, has her own kids. It's the same old shit, but just in a different situation. And then all of a sudden, she's really shocked. One day she comes home and realizes that he's had an affair. Well, honey, you stole him off her husband. Now he's having that with someone else. Like, it's bound to happen. Once a cheater, always a cheater. And you think, oh no, it'll be different with me. I'm younger, I'm hotter, I'm this, I'm that. No, he cheated the first time with you. So of course he's going to cheat on you. It's just a rule. And it's really interesting. Quite a famous Australian woman, icon, absolute icon. She's passed away now. She wouldn't probably care. Can I tell? Anyway, quite an iconic Australian woman had met her partner quite a few years younger than her, and he had cheated on his partner to get with her. And she was with him for, 10, 15 years. And I didn't know that the first time. I didn't know that that's how they met was, him cheating on her. And she said, of course. Then he goes and cheats on me. Why should I be surprised? I'd done that with him. So I think, stick to that motto, once a cheater, always a cheater. I mean, that was bizarre. She went around and she didn't want to change all the photos in her house. So she just stuck red dots over his face because there were group photos and she didn't want to.